Hi, I'm Spencer, and today we're making a tiger logo for my laptop. Okay, so I've opened up Silhouette Studio here, and I'm going to go to the design store by clicking on the store option here. And then I'm going to find the design that I want to make today. It's going to be a tiger design using the design ID number 346372. If I search that, I'll get right to the design I'm looking for. So this is going to be the design that I want to make today, and it's going to be the one that I put on this laptop. So I'm going to go ahead and download this design. And then I've already actually purchased it and have it in the software. So I'll then go to my library. And then right here in all files I could find it. And right here in the T section, I find my tiger design. So when I open it up, it's first going to be a different size than what I want to cut it out as. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to set up the page to be what I'm working with. Since I'm working with 12-inch vinyl and it's a roll, I don't need a cutting mat. So I'm actually going to turn off the cutting mat here, and then I'm going to adjust the width of my page to 12 inches. Now that I've done that, I'm also going to change this one to 12 just because I like to work in a square design space. And then on my tiger, if I click on it, I can actually see both the width and the height of the design. Now I measured out the laptop and I have about 9 inches of height to work with. Since the tiger has more height than width, this will be the number that I'm going to work with here. So I'm going to click on this lock icon. And what this does is it just locks the ratio so that when I change one of these numbers, it changes the other one to stay the same size. So since I have about 9 inches, I'm going to change the height here to 9. And then this is about the size of the design that I'm going to be working with. Now I could just cut it like this, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to try and save as much vinyl as I can. So I'm just going to rotate it so it's a little bit shorter, and then I'm going to put it up in the corner. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead into the send page here now that we're ready to cut. And then I need to select my machine down here in the machine connections. As you can see, there's a lot of connections since there's plenty of machines around me. But what I'm going to look for here is this one that says available, since I'm connected through USB. Now that I've selected that, it says that it's ready to load. Now I'm also going to make sure here that I have the correct settings for my cutting device. So I'm going to select the material I'm working with, which is a matte vinyl. So I'm going to go down to V. And in the vinyl section here, I'm going to select matte. Now the cut settings here that pop up are the recommended cut settings. These ones should work perfectly, although the vinyl that I'm working with, I usually like to up the force just by 1 or 2 to make sure that it cuts deep enough that weeding is easy. Okay, now that I have the cut settings, I'm ready to actually load my machine and cut the job. All right, so with the machine here, I'm going to be using the roll feeder today, so I'll pull out this little roll feeder tray and open it up. These little tabs pop up to hold your roll. After you have your roll set, you just feed the vinyl through this little slot. And then right here with the machine, this is the loading line that you want to make sure that your material lines up with. And then you just want to make sure that this right roller is going to be on your material. So it looks like right here we're already set. So I just line it up with the machine and I push load, and then we're ready to go. All right, so now back in the software, since I already have the settings ready to go, I'm good to go ahead and just click send and send my cut job. So now I'm going to take that same hook tool and I'm going to check another spot and just make sure that the vinyl weeded, which this time it looks like it did. I'm going to check one more spot just to make sure. Yep. So right there, that little spot was able to weed pretty easy. So now we're actually good to unload it and start the weeding process. All right, so since it's able to weed, let's go ahead and unload the machine. So all we need to do here is push this little unload, and you can see that it fed out of the rollers. So now I can take this and I lay out my design. Let me close this tray first. Best with both hands. And I can see that it cut it out pretty easy. So now I'm going to just cut a line across the design so I can weed this out without wasting any vinyl. And if I was doing multiple designs, like little smaller designs, I could actually use up the extra white space. But for today, I'm just going to cut out this single design and weed it. So as far as weeding goes, I usually like to try and decide which side is going to go best with the design. So I feel like if I actually start from the bottom of the tiger, it's going to weed a little bit easier as I go. So all I do here is I just pick a corner and I start to peel that up. And I try and do it as evenly as possible across the whole design. And if it cuts smoothly, you'll see that I don't even need to do anything. It starts to just weed on its own. And what I do from here is I just make sure no pieces are coming up. Like right here on the little edges, it looks like there's some pieces that are starting to peel up. So what I do is, if anything, you can actually go back. You don't need to worry too much about having went too far. As long as you're careful about it, you can actually put the vinyl back down and then try and make sure that it doesn't peel up the second time around. So now if I go a lot more slowly, because I know that that piece started to come up, when I hit that piece right here, I can actually take this little silhouette hook tool and I can push it down and just try and make sure that it weeds properly. So I got that side, and now over here on this side, I'll do the same thing. If you can even poke it from the back side here. And like I said, you just need to make sure that you got the corners of it down, and then it weeds a lot more easy. Okay, so we've mostly got the design weeded here. There's still just a few pieces like the eyes and part of the nose. Now we'll go ahead and weed that, and then a lot of people like to use different tools to keep all their weeded vinyl pieces. I usually like to take the big piece that I've weeded and have that as a little sticky piece, so that when I weed off little tiny kind of annoying pieces that are hard to deal with because they stick to your fingers and the tools, I just like to stick those right onto the big piece. That way I don't need to buy a separate tool or anything for that. I can just take the little tiny pieces and pop them right on there. So let's just finish weeding out this last little bits here. Okay, now that's it. So this is the done weeding project. Like I said, as long as you have patience with it, weeding can be very therapeutic. All right, so now that we cut out and weeded the design, what we're going to do now is apply some transfer tape. So I have some silhouette transfer tape here. Transfer tape is very useful for vinyl because it's what makes it so you can easily get the project from the vinyl sheeting to whatever you're going to apply it to. Without that, it's a lot more stressful. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to lay out the design and kind of get a little corner peeled up on here. And similar to the weeding, I try and do it as evenly as possible. So I first get it going on both sides here. And then once I've got it going like this, you just try and kind of get it even on your design. Just like that. Just like the weeding, you want to go real slow and be patient with it. And then you just want to kind of run your hand along as you apply the transfer tape. Now we also have a very useful tool for this, our little silhouette scraper. This makes it so that you don't have to use your fingers. It helps get out the air bubbles. Makes it a lot more smooth and easy. Okay, and then once the transfer tape's been applied, I usually just do some real quick runs to make sure I get as many air bubbles out as I can. Make sure it's applied real nice and tight onto the vinyl. Okay. Then after that, I peel up the transfer tape from one end. And then I go through and I snip all the edges because I don't want this extra sticky space. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my scissors here. And you can cut away as much of the excess space as you want. Just make sure you don't actually cut into your design. I'm going to keep the top nice and straight. That's going to help me with applying it. But the rest here I can just cut away at. I'll throw away the excess. And then I go once more with the scraper tool just to make sure that all the edges are nice. And then we're good to go ahead and apply it to the laptop here. Now, you can apply vinyl to whatever you actually want to use it for. I've applied vinyl to gaming consoles. I've even applied it to my car. Today we'll be doing it on a laptop. And the main thing is you just want to make sure you actually measure out your space that you're working with so that you don't make the design too big. You usually want to try and leave at least a little bit of excess space. It makes it easier for when you apply it so that you don't go over the edges. So I'm going to be putting it on this end here so that when I open up the laptop, people will be able to see the tiger face. So it'll be really nice and cool. So then what we want to do here with the transfer tape is we want to take away the vinyl backing and leave the vinyl on the transfer tape. So just like weeding, we want to do this very nice and slow. We want to make sure that we get all the vinyl and go at it very evenly here. So I'm going to try and peel across the top. All right, so now that we got it here on the transfer tape, you can see that we've got our design. Now here's the part where you want to be very careful, because once we stick it to the design or to what we're applying it to, it's going to stay stuck. So what I usually do here is with one hand I try and keep the design up, and with the other hand I'm trying to get it where I want it to be. Now I want this to be roughly in the center of the laptop, so I'm just going to apply it right here at the top. And then similar to the transfer tape, we just want to kind of smoothly lay it down. You can use a scraper tool to get out air bubbles as we go. Okay, now that we got it on, we just want to apply a good amount of pressure to try and get it to stick before we take the transfer tape off. Now, if you don't have a scraper tool, you can do this with your fingers. You can push out the air bubbles, although I will say from personal experience, if you have something like a scraper tool, it does make it a lot easier. And now we should be good enough here to start peeling away the transfer tape very slowly. If pieces come up, it will usually be little tiny pieces, as those are a little bit harder to get to stick. But it looks like this is peeling very nicely. And there we go.